Good evening, everyone. Time for another Bitcoin report. I'm going to call this one the right thing at the right time because that's what I believe Bitcoin is. I'm going to explain that a little bit later, but first let's take a look at the technicals. I have drawn a long-term trend line. It's actually matched up. This is a support line, and I've excluded this drop because that was obviously the Mt. Gox hack, and this drop actually is legitimate, but because of the candles I've excluded it. So I actually drew a line all the way back from about from early, or actually late April. It actually lines up with the trend line we're currently in. So you can see that the trend is still up. I don't have a 200-day moving average on here, but this thing's barely even 200 days old as far as dollar to Bitcoin trading, so that wouldn't be very fruitful. But down here you've got the MACD. You can see that it's been falling, and what's interesting about it is we can't see the data from back before late April, but this other data we can see that the MACD has never gone negative in any of this rise period, all the way up to 30 from 6 cents. As far as we know, the MACD has never gone negative. The MACD is now negative, and you can see it's beginning to round up. Now I've put on here a slow stochastic. I'm not really a big fan of stochastics. They move too much, and they don't really have a lot of predictive power. But you can see that we did get a confirmation on the sell on the slow stochastic, and we got a similar confirmation later on the MACD. So I've included the stochastic. You can see the stochastic is reaching overbought, so we may get one more drop down, which will take the MACD a little bit lower, and then ultimately we're looking for the MACD to cross over to the upside. I expect to see quite a bit of volume come in at that point, and I think that's when we will make a run at our new highs. If you remember, the new highs I projected based on the swing rule are based between 10 and 32. That's a 22-point swing. 32 and 22 is 54. So the price target I'm looking for when the swing rule reasserts itself is $54 for a Bitcoin. Now I want to take you over to Bitcoinity, which has really good information here. You can see 90 Bitcoins, and you've got a little green arrow and a red arrow, so someone bought 90 Bitcoins at 1460. Of course, for every buy there's a sell. I'm not sure if these arrows indicate the initiator of the transaction. That's probably what this is that the 90.45 Bitcoins was initiated by a buyer, so they probably had to go up to fill. When I've had fills, it's been in multiple prices, but it's not necessarily reported, so not really sure. You can see it's trading fairly rapidly here, and I've got it set to all, which is showing both Mt. Gox and Trade Hill. Mt. Gox is still about 80% of the volume, but Trade Hill's in there, and I expect to see others, and probably this site will incorporate them as well. I wanted to address some of the attacks. Before I do that, I wanted to point out this volume here. This is new volume. Nothing like this volume, but there is some new volume coming in. But I want to address some of the attacks that the Bitcoin has withstood, because so much of this has come so fast and furious that it's hard to actually keep track of what's going on. But this is a little summary of what we've seen since June, or even mid-June. We started off with the run up towards 32, and when that happened we got the mainstream media attacks, and that had all kinds of articles just splashed about the Bitcoin and how it's a scam, a Ponzi, all this stuff. It can't survive. Next thing that came was the Silk Road attacks. That was a smear trying to associate the Bitcoin with the Silk Road site, selling drugs. I think the best example of that is a post we had on the Bitcoin discussion forum, where I don't remember his name. I think it was Callista came out and made a post saying, well, I'm in Bitcoins and I'm a Christian, but I'm concerned about supporting drugs, child pornography, and terrorism. And that was like the height of the shill attacks. Obviously, Bitcoins have nothing to do with drugs, pornography, and terrorism. But so a real smear attack. Then the next thing we had was the Mt. Gox hack. Now, no one really knows what was behind that, but if we really think about it, it doesn't appear that the motive was to profit financially, and it doesn't appear that the motive was to profit in Bitcoin. So it's more plausible that it was in Bitcoins, because apparently what the person did was try to run the price all the way down and then be able to withdraw a large number of Bitcoins. But if you look at the volume that took to run it all the way down, and I think the rumors were it was 500,000 Bitcoins, why wouldn't you just withdraw the largest amount of Bitcoins you can withdraw and be done with it? What's the difference whether the price is 1 cent or whether it's $50? It's still, you're limited to $1,000 or whatever number of Bitcoins. So that one doesn't make a lot of sense either, and that's what makes me suspect that there are some nefarious motives behind that attack. Then we had the YouTube trolls, and this is when we had a coordinated effort by a whole bunch of trolls and losers coming out on YouTube making anti-Bitcoin videos and really repeating a lot of fallacious arguments that don't really hold any water, and not answering any of the, not responding to any of the answers to those arguments. And I don't want to go into those because it's a big waste of time, but basically a bunch of nonsense. Now, lately, since the last report I made, we've seen a lot of DDoS attacks against the mining pools. Now, my mining pool, I use BTC Guild, and a lot of people say, well, you should use this, you should use that. I like BTC Guild. I've had a lot of success with them, and I haven't mined that many coins, but maybe a total of 4 or 5 since I started. And but I like the site, I like the statistics and what they do. So, but they came under a tremendous attack. They were under a DDoS attack. They were completely down for a day or two, and they have recently come back up, and I'm still mining with them. I'm making a little bit better than I did before because my percentage is higher as far as the number of hashes that are on there. They're about up to 2,000, I think, gigahashes. So they were at the peak about 3,000 gigahashes. So I think they've pretty much recovered. I think they've used some kind of anti-DDoS software. Maybe they've instituted new routers or firewalls or whatever they use to do that, intrusion detection and anti-intrusion devices. So the latest one I wanted to cover, and of course for all of you that are not conspiracy theorists, you're not really going to buy into all this stuff, it's just random, but I see a pattern, and I'm going to get to that, of who I think's behind that. But the latest one I've seen is a YouTube spam attack, and that is an anti-Bitcoin type of distraction, I'll call it. So let me show you that one. What I do on my channel is I'm trying to make my channel kind of a one-stop Bitcoin video site, because I noticed when I started the channel that there just wasn't enough coverage of the Bitcoin, and I wanted to have a channel that covered that. And I think the Bitcoin is, well, you know what I think about the Bitcoin, how revolutionary and how important it is. But so what I usually do with my channel is I come on once a day and I do a search for Bitcoin, and you can just go in and type in Bitcoin. If you do Bitcoins, you're not going to get as many, but Bitcoin is included in Bitcoin. So you just do a search for Bitcoin, and then you search. And then what you do is you go over to the sort by section in YouTube, and you choose upload date, because what you're looking for is, I check for my updates, and then I know based on my latest update, whether there's been anything new. And of course, we've got Book of Nick here, and these are promoted videos. But if we go in here, this is a great guy that I have added in my favorites, is TechnoCat. This guy's incredibly deep. I really encourage you to watch all of his videos on the Bitcoin, because he has this guy has the ability to make analogies and metaphors and things that really make you think deeply about the Bitcoin. And he's just brilliant. He's well worth watching. Watch everything this guy has to say. But so to get to the point of what we're looking for here is, if we go down here, and what I do is I look for the good ones and new faces and people like that, listen to them and favorite them if they're good, and of course the shills like Raw Dog here, and I don't know where Silver Futurist is at. I don't know where his head's at. I don't really care. But here's what's interesting is that now I've seen recently that you've got this Bitcoin report, and that's actually my title there. And then you've got Bitcoins Can't Talk Stupid. Now, if you click on this video, it's just a picture from some TV show. I don't know. I don't watch TV, so some TV show. But it's got no views, or 6 views or whatever. It's by this person, and it's a new person. You can see they're registered June 23rd. It's just a big waste of space, kind of like a spam blast. And there's another one, but look, it's a different name. Estes Alissi 530, Hendrix Janelle 483. I hope there's not 483 of this. Same thing. Same date registered. Let's go to the next page. Look at this. So here's Pope Shandy and Wise Aurelia, June 23rd. Pope Shandy, June 9th. Well, that's surprising. Most of these are June 20th. Here's Brooks Melisenda, June 23rd. So I think I'm safely justified in saying that this is some type of YouTube spam attack to try to cause the Bitcoin search engine, or the search engine based on Bitcoin, to break. I'm not really sure. So anyway, I'm running out of time because this channel's not past 15 minutes. So I wanted to get to the main topic, and that is that the Bitcoin is the right thing at the right time. Now, this is ZeroHedge.com. And if you've been following politics and economics, you know that we're going through a serious issue about the debt ceiling reduction. And there is no deficit reduction. I'm just going to read you some facts here. Not one penny has been paid of the U.S. debt in the last 51 years. 97% of today's funded debt has been accumulated since August 1971. You know, that's the end of the Bretton Woods and the free-floating exchange system. Obama projects 2.5% Fed's fund rate through 2020. And Obama projects a 4.2% growth rate in the next 3 years. The U.S. government borrows 40 to 50 cents of every dollar it spends. To balance the budget, you'd have to cut government spending in half. Now let's go to the kicker. Last night's deficit reduction targets were cut from 4 trillion to 2 trillion over the next decade in exchange for 2.4 trillion in debt ceiling hike, which will last the Treasury until the next presidential election. Said otherwise, the Treasury needs to fund 2.4 trillion hold over the next 15 months. Over a decade, this comes to 20 trillion, 10 times more than a proposed deficit reduction. So the first sentence says it all here. Bill Buckler talks about this. If presented at the Biden deficit cutting talks, which also and very paradoxically aim to cut the U.S. debt by increasing it. Okay. So, if you go to my silver channel, you know why I have a silver channel. You go to my Bitcoin channel, you know I have a Bitcoin channel. The governments of the world are going bankrupt, and you need to protect your assets in something that will retain its value. That's silver, that's gold, and that's Bitcoin. And we'll talk to you next time.